When Rome conquered your kingdom, they didn't just kill your father, they reserved something far worse for you. If you were a princess, a daughter of a defeated king, what happened next wasn't execution. It was systematic destruction designed to erase your bloodline from history. This is what they did. Before we dive into Cassia's story, if you want to uncover more hidden truths that textbooks won't tell you, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel reveals the real history, the uncomfortable parts that get erased. And trust me, what you're about to hear will change how you see ancient Rome forever. Rome, 61 BC, over 1 million people lined the Via Sacra, the sacred way, cutting through the heart of the city. The air smells of sweat, wine, and burning incense. This is a triumph, the highest honor Rome can give to a victorious general. The procession begins. First come musicians, their horns blaring. Then carts loaded with treasure, gold cups, silver plates, precious stones. Each cart represents a kingdom that no longer exists. Behind the treasure come the captives, hundreds of them, chained at wrists and ankles. Then come the king's former rulers in dirty, torn robes, their crowns replaced with chains. The crowd laughs, spits, throws rotten vegetables. This is how Rome celebrates conquest, with spectacle, with humiliation, with proof that resistance is pointless. Between 200 BCE and 14 CE, Rome conquered most of the known world. The pattern was always the same. Armies arrive, cities fall, destruction begins. Treasuries emptied, temples burned, walls torn down, leaders executed publicly, their heads displayed on spikes. This happened in Carthage, in Corinth, in Jerusalem, in dozens of cities across the Mediterranean. Rome didn't just defeat its enemies, it erased them. But there's something history books don't discuss. What happened to the women? The daughters of defeated kings, the sisters of executed princes. These women rarely appeared in Roman records. When mentioned at all, it's as footnotes, captives paraded in the triumph. But they were there, in every conquest, walking in chains behind their fathers and brothers. And what happened to them after the parade was deliberate, calculated, designed to serve a specific purpose. Rome had a problem in the east. Starting in the 2nd century BCE, Rome expanded into Asia Minor, the kingdom of Pontus, the Armenian Empire, the Jewish kingdoms of Judea. Defeating them in battle was easy, keeping them conquered, harder. Rebellions erupted constantly, so Rome developed a solution. They targeted symbols, temples burned, royal palaces demolished, and royal families were destroyed in ways beyond simple execution, because execution creates martyrs. A king killed in battle becomes a hero, but a royal family humiliated and broken, that sends a different message. The women of these families were particularly important targets. In the ancient world, dynasties continued through women too. A princess could marry a foreign king and give him a claim to her father's throne. Even in captivity, royal women were dangerous to Rome. So what Rome did to these women wasn't random cruelty, it was policy. Designed, implemented, and repeated across multiple conquests, a system of punishment serving specific military and political goals. In the ancient world, power didn't just pass from father to son, it flowed through daughters too. A royal woman carried her family's legitimacy in her blood. Her children could claim the throne of her ancestors. This made princesses and queens dangerous. In 120 BC, the kingdom of Pergamon fell to Rome. The king died without male heirs, but had 2 daughters. Within 5 years, both married rival claimants to the throne. Their husbands used the princesses' bloodlines to justify rebellion. Rome spent the next decade crushing uprisings. The same pattern played out in Pontus, Armenia, Syria. A captive princess wasn't just a prisoner, she was a potential queen. Foreign kings would marry her to gain a claim to her father's territory. Royal women were also symbols. A princess represented continuity, bloodline, the unbroken chain of dynasty. When populations saw a royal daughter, they saw their independence before conquest. Rome tried execution first, killed the daughters along with the sons, but that created problems. Dead princesses became martyrs. In 73 BCE, Rome executed the daughters of King Mithridates, the 6th of Pontus. The women were strangled publicly, but the executions backfired. Within months, a larger rebellion erupted. Rome learned, killing royal women made them symbols of resistance. But what if you could destroy the symbol without creating a martyr? What if the princess herself became proof that resistance was hopeless? That required degradation instead of execution. The logic was brutal but effective. A dead princess could be remembered as noble, but a princess publicly humiliated, broken in ways that stripped away her dignity, she couldn't be a symbol anymore. She became proof of Rome's dominance. This wasn't just cruelty, this was psychology. Rome needed conquered populations to believe resistance was impossible. When a Roman army captured a city, not every prisoner was treated the same. Rome had a system. Common soldiers faced quick decisions. Most were sold into slavery, some executed immediately. But for regular soldiers, the process was efficient. Officers and nobles received different treatment. They might be kept for the triumph, paraded through Rome, then executed, or held for ransom. Some became hostages, ensuring their cities stayed loyal. But royal captives, especially princesses, existed in a separate category. For them, Rome designed something specific, something public, something meant to be remembered. Royal women faced degradation ceremonies. These weren't private executions. They were spectacles, performed in military camps or public spaces, with soldiers assembled to watch. In several documented cases across Rome's eastern conquests, animals were incorporated into these punishments. Horses, specifically cavalry horses, chosen for their size and trained for military use. The details don't need explicit description, but the purpose was clear: total humiliation performed in a manner witnesses would never forget. This wasn't random sadism, it was calculated spectacle. Generals understood that what their soldiers witnessed would become stories. A legionnaire who saw what happened to a captive princess would tell that story in every tavern for the rest of his career. The story would reach other provinces, other kingdoms, other royal families considering resistance. The punishment was repeated across multiple territories. In Pontus, in Armenia, in Judea, different generals, different campaigns, same methods, because they worked. This became part of Roman military culture. Generals competed over the memorability of their triumphs, the spectacle of their punishments. The key was witnesses. Everything had to be seen. Soldiers would watch, but so would captives from the defeated population. Local people forced to attend, sometimes even rival kingdoms' ambassadors. This was psychological warfare. One captured princess, degraded publicly while her people watched, did more to prevent future rebellions than 100 executions, because execution was comprehensible. But what Rome did to royal women went beyond war. It shattered the image of untouchable nobility. The system worked because every element served a purpose, and at the center were the daughters of defeated kings, transformed from symbols of resistance into warnings carved into the collective memory of the ancient world. But what did this look like for an actual woman who faced this fate? Her name was Cassia, princess of Pontus, 26 years old, daughter of King Mithridates VI, one of Rome's most persistent enemies in the east. She had been raised in palaces overlooking the Black Sea, educated by Greek tutors in philosophy, mathematics, and languages. She spoke 6 languages fluently. She had read Homer and Plato. She had been betrothed to an Armenian prince in an alliance that would have doubled her father's power. That was 9 days ago. Now she knelt in the dirt of a Roman military camp, her hands bound with rope, her ceremonial robes torn and stained. The Battle of Zela had ended her father's resistance. King Mithridates had been captured, his sons killed in the fighting, his 3 daughters taken as prizes by General Marcus Licinius Crassus, one of Rome's wealthiest and most ambitious commanders. Cassia was in a stable at the edge of the camp, a wooden building that smelled of animals and old straw. She could hear her sisters in the adjacent stalls, Leodice, 19, Nysa, 18. They weren't screaming yet, but she could hear their high, desperate sounds that came before screaming. Through gaps in the wooden walls, Cassia could see what the Romans had prepared. 3 horses, large cavalry stallions, the kind used in battle. They were being held by handlers in each stall. The preparations were methodical, professional. This wasn't the chaos of war. This was organized, planned. Cassia understood what was about to happen. Everyone in the Eastern kingdoms had heard the stories. The punishment Rome reserved for royal women. The use of horses in ways designed to destroy dignity, status, identity. The spectacle that soldiers would watch and remember and talk about for years. She had 3 options. She could do nothing and watch her sisters destroyed. She could try to resist, which would accomplish nothing except adding her own suffering to theirs. Or she could bargain. Cassia had been raised to rule. Her education wasn't just poetry and philosophy. She had sat in council meetings. She had watched her father negotiate with ambassadors. She understood power, She understood leverage, and she understood that Rome valued certain things more than entertainment. When General Crassus entered the stable to oversee the preparations, Cassia spoke. Her voice was steady despite the terror clawing at her chest. "General, I would speak with you." Crassus stopped. Prisoners didn't typically address their captors, certainly not prisoners about to be destroyed. He turned, curious. "The Pontic princess speaks. What could you possibly have to say that would interest me? An offer, one that benefits you more than what you're planning." Crassus studied her. Romans were pragmatic. Even cruelty served purposes: intimidation, entertainment, discipline. If she could offer something of greater value, she might redirect it. "What offer?" "Take me instead. All of it. Whatever you planned for them, do it to me. All 3 portions of punishment. I'm older, stronger. I'll last longer. The spectacle will be greater." She paused, then delivered the real leverage. "And I have information. The locations of treasure my father hid before the battle. The names of Roman officers he bribed during the war. Intelligence about Parthian allies and trade routes. Give me my sister's safety, genuine safety, not death in a different form, and I'll give you everything I know." Crassus was silent. She could see him calculating, weighing entertainment value against political and financial gain. "Your sisters are younger," he finally said. "More appealing. 3 is more than 1. Why would I accept less? Because torture won't get you reliable information. I could die quickly if I choose to, but if you guarantee my sister's safety, I'll cooperate fully. The intelligence I have could advance your career, make you wealthy beyond this campaign." She met his eyes directly. "I was raised to rule a kingdom. I understand strategy. I'm offering you something more valuable than spectacle. The question is whether you're smart enough to recognize it." Long silence. Then Crassus smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "You understand what you're offering to endure. I understand it won't be quick. It won't be private. But my sisters will be spared. They'll watch. That's part of the arrangement." Cassia's stomach turned, but she forced herself to nod. "If they're truly spared afterward, not enslaved, not given to soldiers, sent to Rome to a household that will treat them as guests, not property." Crassus considered. "You love them. Truly, that's rare in royal families. They're all I have left. My brothers are dead. My father will be executed. My mother died years ago. Leodice and Nysa are everything. Then we have a bargain." He turned to an officer. "Release the younger 2. Bring them here to witness. Prepare the eldest for extended use." Extended use. Multiple animals, multiple days, whatever duration Crassus decided would adequately entertain his officers. But Leodice and Nysa would live. Before the preparations could begin, a younger officer approached. A tribune, perhaps 30 years old, wearing the insignia of a mid-ranking commander. "General, a word." Crassus gestured impatiently. The tribune spoke quietly, but Cassia strained to hear. The intelligence she mentioned, the hidden treasuries, the Parthian connections. If she dies too quickly, or if her mind breaks, we lose that value. She agreed under duress. "People say anything facing immediate horror. If we want reliable intelligence, we need her coherent and cooperative." Crassus frowned. "What do you suggest?" "Delay the intensive measures. Begin with interrogation. Extract what she knows. Verify what can be verified. Then proceed with whatever you deem appropriate. And keep her sisters safe, but present. Her cooperation depends on believing we'll honor the bargain." "You make a reasonable argument, Tribune. What's your name?" "Marcus Antonius Priscus. You understand that cruelty should be purposeful, rather than merely satisfying." "That's good." Crassus turned to the soldiers. "Move the princess to officers' quarters. We'll extract her intelligence before proceeding with entertainment." Cassia felt a complex wave of emotion, relief that the immediate horror was delayed, terror at what intensive measures still implied, and something else when she looked at Tribune Prisca's recognition that he wasn't acting from kindness, but from calculation. He wanted the intelligence. His intervention served his career, not her well-being, but calculated self-interest was more reliable than cruelty. If she could make herself valuable enough, continuously valuable, she might keep delaying the punishment. Maybe indefinitely. She filed the Tribune's name away. Marcus Antonius Priscus, someone who thought strategically, someone who might be useful. For the next 3 weeks, Cassia played the most dangerous game of her life. The interrogations began the next morning. Cassia was brought to a tent in the center of the camp, where Tribune Priscus had arranged writing materials, papyrus, ink, maps of the region. Her sisters had been moved to different quarters, guarded but not bound, with orders to keep them comfortable. Cassia had spent 9 days preparing for this moment. During the journey to the camp, during the hours of captivity, she had been constructing a strategy. Real information mixed with plausible fabrications. Truth that could be verified immediately to establish credibility. Lies that would take weeks or months to disprove. Information valuable enough to keep her alive, but delivered slowly enough to extend her usefulness. The hidden treasuries, Prisca said. Start there. My father had 3 primary locations. Cassia began. The first was at Sinope, in a vault beneath the Temple of Poseidon. You've already found it. I saw your soldiers loading gold onto ships during my transport here. Priscus nodded. This was verifiable information. It established that she was being honest. The second is at Amisos, in a cave system 3 miles east of the city. The entrance is concealed behind a waterfall. Approximately 400 talents of silver, 200 of gold, plus unappraised gems. She drew a detailed map. The treasury at Amisos was real. Her father had shown her the location. Giving it away felt like betrayal, but betraying a dead kingdom was a small price for her sister's survival. The third is more complicated. My father established it in cooperation with Parthian allies, somewhere east of the Euphrates. The specific location was known only to my brother Pharnacus, who died at the Battle of Zela, but I know the names of the Parthian officials involved. That information could be used to approach them more, to expose them to their own king as Roman sympathizers. She was improvising now, weaving partial truths into structures that would take time to verify or disprove. Every day spent verifying was a day her sisters remained safe, a day the punishment remained delayed. Each morning brought new interrogations. Each afternoon, Cassia was permitted to see her sisters. These visits were monitored but not prevented. Priscus had convinced Crassus that the visits maintained her cooperation. A woman who could touch her sisters, confirm they were safe, had reason to continue providing accurate intelligence. Leodice and Nysa were being held in a tent near the camp's edge. They had been given food, clean water, replacement clothing. The terror of those first hours had faded into something more manageable, chronic fear, rather than acute panic. How long can you keep doing this? Leodice asked during one visit. She was the more practical sister, the one who understood politics and calculation. Eventually you'll run out of information. Then I'll find other ways to be useful. Romans need translators, advisors, people who understand Eastern customs. I'll make myself necessary. And if you can't? Cassia didn't answer immediately. The punishment had been delayed, not cancelled. Crassus still intended to fulfill the original purpose eventually, after she had provided all useful intelligence. It doesn't matter what happens to me, she finally said. It only matters that you survive. Tribune Priscus was protecting her, but not from kindness. Cassia understood this clearly. She had observed him during the interrogations, watched how he presented her intelligence to Crassus and other senior officers. He was ambitious. He wanted advancement, recognition, the career benefits that came from delivering valuable information to Rome. The treasury at Amisos was confirmed by a scouting party after 2 weeks. 417 talents of silver, 203 of gold, gems that Roman appraisers valued at another 100 talents. Cassia's credibility soared. Her value increased. And Priscus, who had advocated for delaying her punishment to extract intelligence, shared in the credit. He visited her quarters one evening after the confirmation arrived. You were telling the truth about Amisos. I told you I would cooperate. If my sisters remain safe. The Parthian connections, how much of that is real? Enough to be useful, not enough to verify quickly. She met his eyes. You want advancement? I can give you intelligence that makes your career, but only if my sisters stay protected. Our interests align. Priscus studied her. You understand politics. I was raised for it. After 3 weeks, messengers arrived from Rome. The Senate had taken interest in Cassia's intelligence about Parthian trade routes and political connections. They wanted her transported to Rome for formal interrogation by senators responsible for Eastern policy. But Crassus was not pleased. He had been denied his entertainment. The punishment he had planned, the spectacle his soldiers had been anticipating, had been delayed and now was being taken from him entirely by senatorial order. He demanded compensation, a public ceremony before Cassia left for Rome, a demonstration of his authority, proof that he controlled her fate, even though he was relinquishing her to senatorial custody. The ceremony was scheduled for dawn. 3 days before departure, the entire camp would attend. Over 1,000 soldiers assembled in formation. Crassus would receive public submission from a royal captive before surrendering her to Rome's political apparatus. Cassia understood what this meant: humiliation instead of physical destruction, a wound to her dignity rather than her body. In the arithmetic of costs and benefits that governed her existence, this was acceptable, this was survivable. The ceremony was held in a hollow square formed by the assembled legions. Cassia was dressed in a simple white tunic, the clothing of a supplicant, someone seeking forgiveness from powers greater than themselves. Crassus stood on a raised platform, his armor polished, his expression satisfied. "Princess Cassia of Pontus," he announced, his voice carrying across the silent square. "You stand before Rome as representative of a kingdom that defied Roman authority. Your father is in chains. Your brothers are dead. Your kingdom is a Roman province. Speak your submission." Cassia had been given the words the night before. She had memorized them, practiced them, stripped them of emotional weight so she could speak them without breaking. "I, Cassia of Pontus, acknowledge that I have no kingdom, no throne, no authority except what Rome permits. I acknowledge that my life continues at Rome's pleasure, that my family's survival depends on Rome's mercy, that everything I was belongs now to the Senate and people of Rome." The words tasted like ash, but she spoke them clearly. "Kneel." She knelt. The ground was hard beneath her knees. Lower, she prostrated herself, forehead touching the dirt, arms extended toward the platform. "Approach." She crawled forward on hands and knees, the position of a slave, an animal. She crawled until she reached the base of the platform, until Crassus's boots were directly before her face. "Complete your submission." She kissed his feet, leather and dust, and the taste of humiliation that would stay with her for the rest of her life. She kissed them as her sisters watched, as 1,000 soldiers watched, as the sun rose over a camp where she had almost been destroyed and was instead being degraded in ways that would be remembered and discussed for years. Then it was over. Crassus stepped back. "Rome accepts your submission. You will proceed to Rome to serve the Senate as they require. Remember what you have done here today." The psychological cost was immense. Voluntary degradation, choosing to crawl, choosing to kiss the feet of the man who had threatened to destroy her. Sisters carved something out of her that would never return. Pride, dignity, the sense that she controlled her own existence, gone. But Leotis and Nysa were safe. The bargain had held. The price was paid. She added it to the ledger she kept in her mind. Another cost, another day survived. Another step toward whatever safety might be possible in Rome. But Rome wasn't done with her yet. The triumph was coming. We're only halfway through Cassia's story, and it's already darker than anything you learned in school. If you're finding this valuable, do me a favor. Leave a comment below telling me which historical figure I should cover next. Who else deserves to be remembered? Your suggestions help me decide what to research next. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Hit that button so you don't miss next week's video about what happened to captured queens in medieval Europe. The algorithm only shows these videos to people who engage, so subscribe, comment, and let's keep uncovering the truth together. The journey to Rome took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of jolting cart rides, of sleeping in cold military camps, of eating stale bread, and listening to Roman soldiers joke about how they'd parade us through the streets. Sometimes we passed through villages where people lined the roads to stare at the defeated Alexandrian royal family. They threw things: rotten fruit, clods of dirt, sometimes just spit. The soldiers never stopped them. Every mile brought news of how our father's defeat was being celebrated in Rome. Apparently, Caesar had commissioned poets to write verses about it. Artists were painting scenes of the battle. The whole city was preparing for something called a triumph. "What's a triumph?" Nysa asked me one evening, her voice small. I knew. I'd heard the soldiers talking. "It's a military parade," I told her, trying to keep my voice steady. When a Roman general conquers new territory, the Senate grants him a triumph. He enters the city in a golden chariot, leading his army through the streets, and bringing his captives with him. "Us," Nysa whispered. "Us," I confirmed. What I didn't tell her, what I couldn't bring myself to say, was exactly what role captives played in a triumph. We would walk in chains through Rome's streets, so 1,000,000 people could see us humiliated. We would be living proof of Caesar's victory, evidence that he had crushed the great kingdom of Egypt. The day arrived too soon. They woke us before dawn and gave us our costumes. I used that word deliberately. because what they handed us weren't real clothes. They were theatrical mockeries meant to look Egyptian, while providing almost no actual coverage. Nisa started crying when she saw hers. Arsino's face went white. Even my twin brothers, usually so stoic, looked sick. "We can't," Arsino has said. "We're royalty. You can't. You'll wear what you're given," the centurion interrupted, "or you'll wear nothing at all." So we dressed. Then came the chain's heavy iron manacles connecting our wrists, with a longer chain linking us together like a string of fish at market. The metal was cold against my skin and already starting to chafe. They led us through the Porta Triumphalis, the special gate used only for triumphs. Even before we entered, I could hear the crowd a sound like the ocean, vast and terrifying. Then we turned the corner, and I saw them. 1,000,000 people. That's what the soldiers had said, and I believed it. They filled every space packed along the route, hanging from windows, crowding rooftops, and they were drunk. It was barely mid-morning, but wine had been flowing since dawn. The whole city smelled of it. The screaming hit us like a physical force. Not words, just sound. Hatred turned into noise. Then came the objects. Rotten vegetables first, then garbage, then things I didn't want to identify. Something wet and foul-smelling hit my shoulder. Something harder struck Nisa's back. We walked. What choice did we have? The chains pulled us forward. The guards pushed us from behind. The crowd pressed in on both sides, so close I could see individual faces twisted in mockery. Some shouted actual words, insults about Egypt, about our father, about us. Others just howled like animals. We'd been walking for perhaps an hour when Nisa went down. One moment she was beside me, the next she was on her knees, the chain yanking at my wrist. The crowd roared louder, sensing weakness. I could see it in their faces. They wanted her to crawl. They wanted her broken. "Get up," I hissed, trying to pull her to her feet. But the chain was too heavy, the heat too intense, the humiliation too much. She made a sound that wasn't quite crying, wasn't quite breathing. A guard moved toward us, whip in hand. "Touch her," I said loudly, clearly, and I stopped walking. "Right here, right now. Let's see how Caesar likes his triumph parade," stalling in the middle of the forum because one of his guards decided to beat a child. The guard hesitated. Behind us, the procession was bunching up. Arsino had stopped too, and my brothers. We all stood there in the middle of Rome's most sacred street, refusing to move until Nisa could stand. Finally, the guard backed off. I got my arms around my little sister and half lifted her to her feet. "Lean on me," I whispered. "I've got you." 3 hours. That's how long a Roman triumph lasts. 3 hours of walking through streets packed with people who hated us, who celebrated our family's destruction as entertainment. 3 hours of Nisa leaning against me, both of us stumbling forward while garbage rained down and the crowd screamed for our blood. But we made it. Somehow, we made it. When it finally ended, when they led us away from the crowds to whatever prison they'd prepared, realized something. They'd taken everything from us. Our home, our father, our dignity, our clothes. They'd paraded us through their city like animals in a menagerie. They'd tried to break us, but they couldn't take everything. They couldn't destroy the connection between Nisa and me. The way Arsino squeezed my hand when the crowd got especially vicious. The way my brothers walked with their heads up despite everything. We were still family. We still had each other. The triumph ended, but our captivity was just beginning a different phase, one that would prove, in its own way, even more dangerous than the hatred of the Roman mob. After the triumph, we became valuable property. They housed us with Senator Gaius Marcellus, a widower with political ambitions who saw opportunity in having the defeated royal family of Egypt living under his roof. His villa on the Esquiline Hill was comfortable, almost luxurious compared to what we'd expected. We had rooms of our own, decent food, even access to his library. The price was our knowledge. "Tell me about the grain routes from Alexandria," Marcellus would say over dinner. Or, "What can you tell me about the Nabatean trade agreements?" Or, "I need someone to translate this diplomatic letter from Antioch." I told him. I translated. What choice did I have? My sister's comfort depended on my cooperation, and besides, Egypt was gone. What loyalty did I owe to a kingdom that no longer existed? The years passed. 5 years became 10. 10 became 14. I became an expert. That's what they called me, the senators, expert on Eastern affairs. When Rome negotiated with Parthia, they consulted me. When disputes arose over Syrian territories, I interpreted not just the language but the cultural nuances that Roman diplomats missed. I attended dinners with praetors and consuls, advised on policy, became a fixture in certain political circles. I was useful. That made me almost free. By my sisters adapted to each in her own way. Leotis learned household management from the senator's steward. She had a gift for organizing, planning, managing servants with firm kindness. When she turned 20, a respectable equestrian family formally adopted her. I attended her wedding 2 years later, watched her marry a decent man who seemed to genuinely love her. She had 3 children. I held each of them when they were born. These nieces and nephews who would never know they were Egyptian royalty. Nisa's path was different. She'd always been musical, but in Rome she flourished. The senator hired teachers, the best in the city. By 16, she was performing at private gatherings. By 20, her concerts were events. People forgot she'd once been a captive princess. They only knew her as Nisa the musician, famous for her voice and her unusual Eastern melodies. She bought her own freedom with her earnings and moved into a small house near the theater of Pompidot. We transformed, from captive princesses to respected residents of Rome, from defeated enemies to useful contributors, from outsiders to, if not Romans, exactly, then at least people who belonged here. But transformation requires sacrifice. I never married. Several men expressed interest over the years, Romans who found my intelligence intriguing, my foreignness exotic. I declined them all. Something in me had frozen that night in the stable, had hardened during those 3 hours walking through screaming crowds. The part of me that might have loved, that might have wanted children, had died. Or maybe not died, maybe just gone into hiding so deep. I couldn't find it again. I was 32 years old and had lived in Rome longer than I'd lived in Alexandria. I spoke Latin better than Greek now. I wore Roman clothes, ate Roman food, understood Roman politics better than most Romans. I'd survived, but my sisters lived. That was the difference. Leotis had a husband who made her laugh, children who called her mama. Nisa had her music, her house, her independence. They'd taken the broken pieces of their lives and built something new. They'd let themselves heal. I'd just endured. The formal decree came on a grey morning in March. The Senate, in recognition of my services to Rome, granted me full citizenship and unconditional freedom. No more reporting to the senator. No more status as a foreign captive on extended parole. I was free. I held the document in my hands, official sealed, undeniably, and felt nothing. 14 years. I had survived 14 years of captivity. I'd protected my sisters, preserved what I could of our family, made myself valuable enough to earn respect and eventually freedom. I had survived, but at what cost? I died at 63, which was old for someone who'd lived the life I had. Old enough to see my nieces and nephews grown, to hold great-nieces and old enough to watch Rome change, to see Caesar Augustus transform the Republic into something else entirely. My sisters were at my bedside. Leotis, grey-haired and grandmother soft, held my left hand. Nisa, still straight-backed, despite her years, held my right. Between them, they'd lived full lives, marriages, children, music, laughter, joy, all the things that make a life worth living. You gave us that, Leotis whispered, as if she could hear my thoughts. Everything we had, it was because of you. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that they'd earned their own happiness, but we both knew the truth. That night in the stable, those decisions I'd made, they'd set everything else in motion. I'd bought their survival with pieces of myself, and I'd kept paying that price for 31 years. Do you regret it? Nisa asked, her voice still clear and musical even through tears. I'd thought about that question for decades. I'd never married, never had children of my own. I'd spent half my life as a captive, and the other half as a useful foreigner in someone else's country. I'd become something I never chose to be, neither Egyptian nor Roman, neither slave nor truly free. But I looked at my sisters and thought of their children, their grandchildren, lines of life extending forward from those terrible choices made in the dark, lives that wouldn't exist if I'd chosen differently. No, I said, I'd do it all again. My funeral was attended by senators and diplomats, by people I'd advised for decades. They called me wise, loyal, invaluable. They said I'd bridged 2 worlds. The eulogy was delivered in perfect Latin by someone who'd never known the girl I'd been before Rome. Leotis died at 80, surrounded by grandchildren who sang Egyptian lullabies. She'd taught them songs passed down from a kingdom they'd never see. Nisa lived to 90, still performing occasionally. Her house filled with students learning music from a tradition Rome had tried to destroy. They both ensured my story was passed down. Not the sanitized version Rome preferred, the cooperative captive who'd made herself useful, but the real story. The choices I'd made, the prices I'd paid, the impossible mathematics of survival under conquest. Because that's what I represented. Not heroism or tragedy exactly, but something more complicated. The impossible choices that conquest forced on the conquered. The calculations you make when every option is terrible, but some are survivable. I wasn't unique. That's the hardest truth to accept. Throughout Rome's expansion, countless royal daughters faced similar fates. Countless young women from defeated kingdoms found themselves captive in a foreign city. Their families dead or scattered, their futures dependent on Roman mercy. Most of them were destroyed by violence, by despair, by the sheer impossibility of their situations. I was exceptional only in that I found a way through, found a way to protect my sisters, to transform captivity into something almost resembling a life, found a way to survive without losing everything that mattered. But even survival came at a cost. So what does this tell us about Roman conquest? Open any history book about Roman conquest, and you'll find detailed accounts of battles, brilliant generals, political maneuvering. You'll read about Julius Caesar's military genius, about legion formations and siege tactics. What you won't find is Cassia. You'll find her mentioned once. A footnote. Among the captives displayed in Caesar's triumph were several children of Ptolemy XIII. That's it. One sentence for 14 years of captivity. For a lifetime of impossible choices. Roman historians didn't document what happened to women like Cassia because they didn't consider it important. But this systematic violence against women wasn't incidental to Roman expansion. It was a deliberate tool of conquest. When you defeat a kingdom, you destroy the royal family's ability to produce legitimate heirs. You humiliate daughters, scatter bloodlines, ensure no future generation can claim the throne. This pattern wasn't unique to Rome. Throughout history, conquerors understood that defeating an army wasn't enough. You had to destroy the conquered people's sense of legitimate continuity, and the most efficient way was through targeting royal women, the daughters of defeated kings. Faced fates designed to destroy not just them, but everything they represented. Cassia's legacy is resistance through protection, survival through sacrifice. She found a way through when there was no good way through. When you hear about Roman conquest, remember, it wasn't just legions and eagles, it was also Cassia, 17 years old, making choices no one should ever have to make. Remember Cassia. Remember the princess who knelt in filth and offered herself for her sisters' lives. Remember the girl who walked in chains through screaming crowds, who spent 14 years transforming captivity into survival, who died never having lived the life she should have had. This is what conquest actually looked like, for those who experienced it as defeat. Not glorious battles and marble monuments, but impossible choices made in the dark by people whose names history forgot. The daughters of defeated kings deserve to be remembered. If this story made you think differently about history, subscribe to this channel, because I'm uncovering more hidden truths that don't make it into textbooks. Comment below, which historical figure should I cover next? Who else deserves to be remembered? Share this video with anyone who thinks they understand ancient history, because the real story is always darker and more complex than what we're taught. Hit that notification bell, because next week I'm revealing what actually happened to captured queens in medieval conquests. You won't believe what I found.